since I'm saying there's so much more to the story, I just want to point out that so much more to the story may not just mean that it isn't finished yet, like that there's more to come, but it also, as a phrase, could mean the story as it has been so far is much different than what you've been told about it. Because in storytelling, point of view is everything. So I want to talk about that. Point of view is everything. Point of view is everything. Have you ever had a situation that felt really big to you in one moment and really small in the next? What was different? You know, the situation obviously can change, but let's say it didn't. Have you ever had a situation that felt in the moment like the biggest thing in the world? Later you saw, that kept me up at night? That? Okay. It's probably that the point of view changed. The point of view changes sometimes because of you changing. Sometimes the point of view changes because of you. As you change, the way you see things changes. As you mature, as you grow, as you get tools, you should be able to look back over your life and go, oh, wow, I was a jerk there. And you don't even have to necessarily call the person and say I was a jerk 4.5 years ago, but at least to know it moving forward. And sometimes you make repairs in relationships, and sometimes it would do more harm to open an old wound. But see, the point of view changes because of you changing. And if you don't let God change you, that's where you get stuck in a story. You go, oh man, this always happens to me and never gets my way, and everybody always picks on me. What is the why is everybody always picking on me character? Maybe you can put it in the comments for me. I don't remember. But, you know, point of view is everything when it comes to not only how you tell a story to a friend. I was telling somebody the other day about working with a certain individual, and I was like, that was awesome. They came in, they gave their all. It was incredible. Person sitting in the room didn't look like they were on the same page as me. This person who had come in and worked with me, I had seen, right, they were all in, they were going hard. The person in the room had been involved in the lead up to the person coming in to work with me. And in the lead up, the person was really difficult, non-committal, indecisive. I put a lot of extra strain on my team who was helping to arrange all of the details. And so, you know, in that particular situation, the person that was sitting in the room with me had information that changed the way that I saw the story. There will be times in your life where either an outside observer or an inward witness will call to your mind something that you just know happened this way. I know they took advantage of me. I know I did 97% of the work and got 3% of the credit. And then time shifts the story because of you changing, growing, evaluating, experiencing life, gaining ability for empathy. Because of you changes, your point of view changes. Now, I'm going to bring this to the gospel real quick, because we could do Joshua and Moses, but we could also do Jesus and the disciples. Moses discipled Joshua. Jesus discipled Peter. Imagine the difference of Peter telling the story about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane before and after the resurrection. Imagine he's telling the story. They came up to get Jesus. He was praying. We were sleeping. Maybe he leaves that part out of the story. He was praying. We were sleeping. And I was trying to help, because when Barabbas came to get him, I cut his ear off. And Jesus didn't even appreciate what I did for him. He put his ear back on. He undid the work I did. And then all of a sudden, at the cross when he denies Jesus in the courtyard and then isn't there at the cross, and then he's out fishing and Jesus comes to get him and talks about feed my sheep, and he goes on in his ministry in the light of the empty tomb rather than in the shadow of the cross. I believe he told a different story after he had lived through a few stages of life, and you will too. You will too. Maybe at the time he wrote First Peter, because he was older then, he's saying, humble yourself. Like, you don't know what you don't know. Point of view is everything. I was young and now I'm old, but I never seen the righteous forsaken. And, we are not always on the same page with God. We're not always on the same page with God's Spirit. And maybe it'd be helpful for us today sometimes to find those points of communion and contact with God so we can get on the same page, so that we can have his point of view. You know that God has a purpose in the earth, and he's working that purpose in your life. And there is a bigger picture than any particular incident or preference. There's a bigger picture than your past up to this point or your present pain. And to get into that place with God where you can say, all right, Lord, I want you to be my new point of view. And that means allowing him to speak things about you, how he sees you, because God sees you different than you see you, your situation, your struggle, the injustices that have been done to you, the mistakes that you've made, and what you need to do next and what you can do next. Point of view is everything. The same Peter that was saying, never, Lord, telling Jesus what to do, was saying, humble yourself. Because of you changing, because of you changing, as you change, your point of view changes. Point of view is everything in the story. So, little exercise that I was introduced to recently. It was saying, how would somebody who admires you describe you? Try seeing yourself through the eyes of someone who admires you. Now, that's hard for me because I am very self-critical. I have a hard time giving myself credit. And because of that, I probably don't encourage others as much as I should, but I'm working on this. And the advice, see yourself through the eyes of someone who admires you, sounded good to me and a little fluffy, if I'm honest. But in the process of considering it, I realized that my wife, Holly, sees me through eyes of admiration. And it's not the kind of admiration that's based on a lack of information where she doesn't know me really well and she only sees a certain side of me. So she admires me. She sees everything. She sees the days in the past where I couldn't get out of bed because I was depressed. She sees the days where I go hide out in my man cave mind and barely engage with the family. She sees the days that I'm irritated. She sees the days that I'm short-tempered. She sees the days that I doubt myself. On an even more practical level, she sees the messes that I make. She sees the slob that I can be. And yet even today, as I was waking up, I opened this letter that she had written me. She gave me a stack of letters for Christmas, and there were only about 4 or 5 of them, but I was on the 4th one. And she put a picture of me with a little note about me. And it was a picture that she took of me getting ready to preach in Los Angeles last year. And in the picture, I'm kind of like sitting there with my head in my hands, with my Bible in my hand. And I know how I felt in that moment, which was like, I'm not the man for this. Who do I think I am going out to preach to 12,000 people at the Forum in LA? I feel all this self-doubt, and I can almost see the self-doubt when I'm looking at the picture. But she wrote me a note saying, thank you for working hard. Thank you for not just relying on your gift strictly, but seeking God to preach to us. And she said, I hope you forgive me for taking this picture without asking your permission. And I thought, man, I need to see myself sometimes through her eyes, because all I see in those moments is what I don't have, what I'm afraid I can't do. But she saw a man who was trying to seek God and lean into him. Point of view is everything. Point of you. The point of you, the point of your life is not just to be self-serving. The point of you, the point of your life is to not just be a consumer who eats all the messages that professional marketers send to you every day. The point of you is to glorify God and to know him and to make him known. And so when God says to Joshua, you will lead these people to inherit the land, which I promised their ancestors, Joshua is getting God's point of view. What is the point of you being in this marriage? What is the point of you being in this family? What's the point of you being on that job? What is the point of you being in that city? Toronto, Wichita, Houston, Charlotte. What is the point of you being there? It's so the glory of God can be revealed. He told Joshua, you are leading these people into the promise, and God is fulfilling his purpose. And from God's point of view, it didn't start with you. So it doesn't start with you. How could it stop with you? He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. God sees the end from the beginning. That's his point of view. Point of view is everything. I believe that God can take you into the future. Do you remember the Apostle John? He said, after this I looked, and there before me was a door standing open in heaven. Revelation 4:1. Yeah, that was a different point of view, right? The voice said, come up here, I'll show you the things that must take place after this. God said, I'll show you. Get with me. Get around people who will not flatter you, not just gas you, and not only admire you in an empty way, but people who God can put in your life to see the things that God put inside of you. Point of view. Kingdom of heaven is in you. And living from the inside out looks like trusting God, even when you can't see what he's going to do, getting his point of view, his promise, and walking in it. Hey, thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel. I hope you were blessed today. If you were, share this with somebody. Like and subscribe and leave me a comment. Let me know where you're watching from, what we can pray for you about. Hope to see you back here again really soon. I feel like there are some people who are listening to me preach today, and you are carrying a letter of your own that was sent by an enemy into church today. I can't see it, and it's not on papyrus. But some of us have what I would like to call emotional scrolls that we carried into church with us today. It's rolled up so no one can see it. It's tucked away, not a letter that was written by human hands, perhaps, but a letter that is written in your heart. The words of the enemy that he has spoken. Sennacherib loves to get in your head. In your head. How many of you tend to be, a lot of times, in your head too much? Now, the reason those of us who are in our heads too much are in our heads so much is because all of the people who are in their heads too little. Somebody has to think for y'all, or we're never gonna get these bills paid. Holly's so good for me because I'm in my head all the time. She's in the moment. Take that however you want. I'm not saying that I'm smarter. It's just like, she's so good for me though. Like, this used to annoy me in our marriage. You know how they say, in marriage, opposites attract, and then after marriage, opposites attack. And so it used to make me so mad. I'd be talking about something so deep like, if he watches over every sparrow. And I would think she wasn't listening, and she'd be like, I'm like, what are you thinking about? She's like, the grocery list. But I liked eating. So I was glad that she was thinking about something kind of practical while I was thinking about something ethereal, abstract, and spiritual, because I don't want to fast. And our marriage in many ways has been a merger of her style of processing and my style of processing, which I'm in my head a lot, and she's really good to get me out of my head. I was on the brink of meltdown like 4 years ago with some stressful stuff that was happening with the ministry. And she goes, I know what we're going to do. We're going to go for a walk. When she said, I know what we're going to do, I thought she was going to give me the solution. There's like a complicated situation. And I'm like, walk. She's going to go. She goes, yes, as people do. It's not that deep. We're going to walk. You're going to feel better. And she was right. When I'm in my head, the problem that I'm considering seems completely unsolvable. When I'm in my head, it appears to me that I have no assistance available. When I'm in my head, every text message that somebody sends me has a secret, covert, malicious intent to it. Why'd they say it like that? Why'd they use a comma? Why is there no period? Why does that emoji have drool coming down its mouth? Now that is weird. I should look into that. But you start reading into everything when you're in your head. Oh man, why did they say it like that? Why did they look at me like that? They weren't looking at you. It's completely ridiculous for you to think that everybody in that video game called your life is an NPC and you're the main character. But yet we do that when we get in our head. Have you been stuck in your head this week? Is that why? Which one's my main camera? I can't remember. The top one? Okay. Have you been stuck? Let me start over. Have you been stuck in your head this week? Is that what's been happening in your life? That God took me all the way back thousands of years before you were even born, before you even got in this battle that you're in, before you even started feeling these symptoms in your body, before you even started feeling this stress that has you completely wound up and unable to deal with your life. Is that why God had me studying about a king who thousands of years ago, before you and I were ever even a thought, before you and I were ever even a shimmer in our mama and our daddy's eyes, before you and I were ever even a part of this planet, this king named Hezekiah gave us a pattern for what to do when the enemy tries to get in your head. Aren't you glad for the strategy of God? Because honestly, I need a strategy. I need to know how to do battle in my brain. I need to know what to do when what I believe about God is telling me one thing and what I see in my life is saying another. I need to know how to respond to Sennacherib. I've got my own Sennacheribs, and they send me letters. They are my personal fears. They are not yours. My fears speak differently than your fears, because my devil is custom designed to defeat me according to my weaknesses and my strengths, and so is yours. So the challenging thing for me today, can I preach? Is that I know what this Bible says, but I don't know what your letter says. I know what this word says about what God is and who God is and what he can do and what faith is, the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, and what his word is, the everlasting seed which produces change. I know what his word says. I don't know exactly what
your letter says. And I don't know if your letter is something real that you're going through and it really is a diagnosis, or if it really is just something that you're imagining that hasn't happened yet. I don't know if your letter is something that's going on in your industry, your company, something going on in that corporation called your family. You know that company where you can't fire anybody? I don't know what your letter says. But Sennacherib told Hezekiah, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to wipe you out. It's going to be humiliating. Sometimes the letters that the devil sends me to get in my head is he tells me that something in my life is going to happen to cause me great shame. And let me tell you another thing. The day we live in, you don't even have to do anything wrong to be publicly shamed. So that can feel like a real threat, can't it? When things are going good in my life, Sennacherib tells me, it won't be this way long. When things are going bad in my life, he flips the script. It's gonna be like this forever. Sometimes when I preach, they'll say, it was like you were reading my mail. And the Holy Spirit will read your mail. Today, we came to see what we need to do when we're holding a letter in our hearts of condemnation for our past that is behind us and forgiven by the blood of Jesus, but we don't feel forgiven, so we keep repeating it. We came to find out what to do when we're handed a letter of impending doom, even when there's no clear indication that it's going to happen, but you imagine it. And I'm gonna tell you why you keep imagining it. You need to stop listening to so many serial killer podcast chunks. Just messing with him, that's my dude. And sometimes we feed ourselves the raw material, and then the enemy makes our letter out of what we feed him. And then sometimes it's more passive than that. Sometimes it is things we didn't consciously choose, but whatever the situation is, it stopped me in my tracks when I saw what Hezekiah did about the letter that he received. And it helped me so much that I wanted to pass it along to you today. You want it? Verse 14, he received the letter from the messengers, and he didn't rip it up and pretend that it didn't exist, because that's one way to handle it, right? Some of us, we don't deal with anything that we feel. We don't deal with anything that we think. We don't deal with anything that we need to work on. We don't deal with anything that's stressing us out. We just rebuke the devil of stress. But if you rebuke the devil of stress without fixing the source where some of your stressful situations are coming from. I was trying to rebuke the devil one time, and it was like the Holy Spirit said to me, you're trying to rebuke the devil when you need to rebuke your decisions and reverse them and make better ones. Am I reading your mail? Is that what that feels like? Yeah, so he didn't rip up the letter, because I think that's a lot of times how we're taught to do this faith thing, right? Like just to, oh no, I believe God's gonna make it better, and it doesn't matter what the enemy says. Well, the truth is there are some things that we have to deal with. This is not a king who's receiving a threat that he can just ignore. He actually does have to respond to this threat. Because as we read at the end of the chapter, there's 185,000 Assyrian soldiers waiting to take him out. So if he gets the letter saying, hey, we're coming in, and just goes, I don't focus on the negative. I'm an optimist. You're gonna be a dead optimist. You're gonna be a optimist with a crown on is what you're gonna be, Hezekiah. Optimist with a crown, but there's gonna be no head on your shoulders. It's gonna be rolling on the floor. You're gonna be a headless optimist, a dead optimist. And a lot of people are like that when it comes to their faith. I rebuke this bill. The power company doesn't cut it back on because you said, let there be light. You can quote Genesis 1 over the power bill all you want in the dark. So watch this response. He doesn't rip up the letter saying, well, that's not true. You're not powerful. You can't do that. Yes, it is true. It is real. That's the reality of the situation. The second thing that I noticed that he didn't do, and I'm telling you what he didn't do, so that when I show you what he did do, you will have something to compare it to. He received the letter. Remember, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you just like I killed everybody. I'm going to kill your family. I'm going to take your kids out. Your kids are going to end up on drugs. Your kids are going to end up divorced. Your kids are going to end up worthless because you yelled at them this morning. That's how it goes for me. It spirals real quick. I would just be a little too harsh with the kids, and the devil would be like, that's why you're going to be bailing them out of jail. Right there. They're going to have a needle in their arm right there. And it all started with you. It can spiral real quick. Now, so this is the second thing that Hezekiah didn't do when he got the letter from Sennacherib. They're like, hey, king, we don't know what to do. We can see you've already ripped your clothes. It is a bad situation, but he sent another letter. So he received the letter, verse 14 again, and he read it. Watch this. And he read it again, and read it again, and read it again, and read it again, and read it over and over and over until he had memorized it. And then he gathered the whole nation and recited the letter for them that their enemy had written. And then he had it translated into 30 different languages so that everybody could hear in their own language the threat of the enemy. And then he began to study it, and he broke it down into different syllables, and he made songs around it. And he began to sing the songs of Sennacherib. That's not in the verse, is it? I can't prove this, but I think when it says, please put the verse back up, that he received the letter and he read it, that he only read it once. And after he read it once, look what he did next. He read it, and then he went up to the temple of the Lord. You don't even know how anointed that is, what I just showed you. That's what stopped me in my tracks. When I read that verse, I stopped and I said, oh, that's my problem. When I get a letter from the enemy, I read it over and over and over. When he puts a thought in my head to draw me away from my hope, I play it over and over and over. When I have an experience where I make a mistake, I play it over and over and over. But when I get a word from God, I listen to it once and I go to lunch. So my problem is, watch this. I'm giving more attention to Sennacherib's letter than the Spirit's message in my life. So he read it. Somebody shout, he read it. He dealt with it. He faced it. He accepted it. He acknowledged it. I'm in debt. I'm overweight. I'm stressed out. I'm busy. I'm torn apart right now. I'm not in the position I need to be in to make the difference in the life of my kids. I'm not the example I want to be. Okay, I read it. But after he read it, he didn't stay down in it. Because if I stay down in it and memorize it, then I'm gonna get more of it. But come on, y'all, 2023, let's follow Hezekiah and do what Hezekiah did. What did he do? He read it and he went up. And I came to call you out today and tell you it's time to go up to the temple and see what the Lord says about this situation. Because if you stay in your head, you're dead. If you stay in your head about this, you are going to go through hell over this. And the enemy won't even have to shoot a single arrow because he will defeat you by getting in your head and causing you to forfeit the very thing that you couldn't lose if you would stand firm and see what God has said. Hey, thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel. I hope you were blessed today. If you were, share this with somebody. Like and subscribe and leave me a comment. Let me know where you're watching from, what we can pray for you about. Hope to see you back here again really soon.